It's called stumbling blocks, and that is me, in shape, running. And so that's kind of a timeline of a lot of our lives. It really is. A lot of time we just start off running. This is kind of sort of like the point of our start with God, and so we accept Christ in our heart. You know, we say a sinner's prayer, or we, give our hearts completely to God, and we start following Him. So we start running this race. But sometimes we get in the middle of our life and we trip. We can also hurt those, and we can also trip and get back up and keep going. And sometimes, like the third person, they just fall completely off. So our goal is, as a youth group, is to equip everyone coming here to know that this is a reality, that they're going to come up against these stumbling blocks and these rocks. And I had an awesome video to show you, but I couldn't find it. It was with me skating, and as I was skating, I literally, you see me doing this, I'm like, and then all of a sudden I go, whop, and I just fly forward, and I roll around, and it's all on film. And it was a pebble, literally, oh gosh, what size? Smaller, half the size of a pea. We're gonna play this today, Lucy. So what is a stumbling block? Give me some answers. Like, what is a block? Like,
it's a square.
Yeah, absolutely. It's square. Could you trip over a square?
If it's
in your way.
In your way, yeah.
Okay. What else could be? I just described one.
Stump.
Stumps. Yeah.
Oh,
Call a stumbling stump.
A rock.
A rock.
A crack.
Kind of what I described, a crack. So these are all variations of something we can trip on. For me, it didn't end so well because I think I hit my head, and I was pretty bad on a stupid pebble, like about that big. So even when we're running in full confidence, we can sometimes even see how this one, in fact, is going up. And we can see how it's peaking up, and we're going to hit it, and he knows he's going to hit it, but he's not stopping. He's still going full force, and then he hits it. So let's take a look at some verses. Go ahead and open your Bibles up to Philippians 2. Philippians chapter 2. I'm going to cover a couple verses today because I think it's really important.
Don't be selfish. Don't try to impress others. Be humble, thinking of others as better than yourselves. Don't look out only for your own interest, but take an interest in others too.
That is a heavy verse.
It is.
Okay, so Kenzie, you're awesome. So if you can read 12b.
Work hard to show the results of your salvation. Obey God with deep reverence, and fear.
Basically saying that if you are saved, the natural byproduct of that will be good works. Not that works save us, but that the result of our salvation produces good works. So it's really cool. Okay, now I'll read the last one. 1 Corinthians 8:8. I really like this one. So it says, it's true that we can't win God's approval by what we eat. We do not lose anything if we don't eat it, and we don't gain anything if we do. So we need to do some identifying of some stumbling blocks on our own personal walks, because that's a big deal. Because for me personally, I went through life when I first got saved, and I'm seriously, like, I had nothing but boulders in front of me. I had drinking, I had smoking weed, I had other various drugs, I had cursing, I had robbing, I had a ton of other stuff that I was participating in as a Christian because, one, I didn't know better because I wasn't reading the Bible. Two, I didn't have no one come alongside me. And three, I wasn't praying to God, listening to what the Holy Spirit, who was inside of me at that point, wanted to tell me. So the first one we need to look at is, we're going to look at three things. The first one is stumbling blocks. increase the temptation to sin. Stumbling blocks make sin harder to resist. Okay, stumbling blocks increase the temptation to sin. Stumbling blocks make sin harder to resist. So, sometimes life naturally has stumbling blocks. It's just life. I go down the street, some chick's got a shirt that's cropped down to here. You know, it's cropped down to here, it's cropped up to here. It's not even a shirt. You know, that's a stumbling block for guys. Girls, it could be Thor walking around with no shirt at all. That is a stumbling block, you know? And so that is a stumbling block. So we have those natural things. So I want a couple stuff from you guys to think about natural stumbling blocks. Give me some. Besides the guys, what about guys? What specifically about guys is a stumbling block? It could be to you or it could be general.
Well, I mean, it's the whole thing of how they always want to be in relationships or, of any sort, and how that can just lead down to bad things.
Sure.
And that's definitely a stumbling block.
So they always want to be in relationships, so then they pressure you,
exactly,
knowing that you want to be in a relationship too.
Mm-hmm.
So then that's automatically a stumbling block, and so you are focused on that. So that's a good stumbling block. What else?
Alcohol.
Alcohol. We see TV shows. I mean, dude, I can't tell you how many not Kid Network, family channels and stuff like that we don't really watch them, but from watching Netflix and stuff, I can't tell you, or even Hulu, I see kids and the promotion of drinking in these shows, and they're like targeted for like 8 to 12, you know? And okay, this is gonna be one of those nights. So that's one. Smoking, that's another one. We got Joe Camel, we got all these people being plastered up on billboards, which is funny because even the anti-ads even promote smoking. The this is what it does to you. Does anyone ever listen to those?
People laugh at them.
People laugh at them. That's
like,
right.
that's so stupid.
Exactly. Look at me. I smoke. I look great. I'm gorgeous.
I mean, the reason why people start smoking is to be cool. Like everyone who I've ever met who's smoking, like, why do you do it? They're like, because it's cool.
Yeah. And that is a natural stumble block. That is peer pressure. And so that peer pressure becomes a stumbling block. So we have to then see what that stumbling block is. We have to identify, as I said earlier, to see what that stumbling block is. And then sometimes our own stumbling blocks, we add them to our lives because we justify them. And if you guys weren't here, and but on New Year's Eve, I was telling people the thing I made up for justification, or justify. If you listen to the word carefully, it's just if I, right? Justify. It's just if I. We justify this in our lives. We go through life, okay? This is us adding our own stumbling block. It's like me taking this little box, which represents a block, and it's like me going, "Oh wow, that's a pretty box. Cool. It's an iCruise audio hands-free set. That's a pretty awesome thing. I want it." So what we do is we take it and we're googly-eyeing it, you know? Googly-eyeing it, we throw it down. We're like, sweet box. And all of a sudden that box over time not only can get bigger, it may stay the same, but it may get bigger. And guess what? Sooner or later I'm going to trip over that. If that is a stumbling block that's drawing me away from God, then that's what's going to happen. I'm going to trip over that one of these days. Okay? So what we need to do is figure out how to remove that stumbling block out of our path, so we are good from here all the way to the finish line where God wants us, where He says, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You finished the race." And we have as little of these as possible. But we know that's not realistic. So we have to not only identify these stumbling blocks, but now we have to look at the intention of them. So let's look at number 2. So, Hannah, you want to read that?
Stumbling blocks may or may not deliberately intend to be such. They may or may not be conscious of the impact of their deeds.
Isn't that a complex sentence?
Mm-hmm.
So stumbling blocks may or may not be deliberately to be as such. So I can look at smoking, or as dating, or as, you know, in the, you know, dating world, you know, if you want to use the bases, want to go to first base with this girl or second base with this girl or this guy, that may not to you be a stumbling block at the time. Or even dating. You're like, oh, I want to date, I want to date, I want to date, but that may not be a stumbling block to you. But it ends up being a stumbling block. So you may go out and you may go to, let's say, like I used to go out to, with my landlord who had a friend who was very flaming gay, and we were total friends, and I used to go hang out with him, and I knew the guy liked me, you know, and I was creating a stumbling block. Not that I would go on that impulse, but I was stumbling myself by going out with him because I knew he'd buy me drinks. Not the best situation to do. I mean, like, really, and what was that doing for my walk with God? It was a stumbling block. It was sin. And that stumbling block ended up causing a rift between me and that person, because that person then always looked at me as like, oh, you only want to hang out with me to have me buy you drinks. So that was not very good. And that was a huge stumbling block, and I had to get rid of it at some point. I had to stop hanging out with that person. So anyways, so stumbling blocks may or may not deliberately intend to be such. They may or may not be conscious of the impact of their deeds. Have you ever like looked at life and said, I want to do this because the rewards is this? Okay, I'll give you an example. And this is actually a real example. When Brittany and I were first married, a couple of years, probably like second or third year. I think it was like the second year. Yeah, give or take. Okay, so the second or third year we were married, I started doing websites. I started graphic designing and doing websites. And I got a call. I said, I'll do any website, whatever it is, I will do it. I will get paid. I will thank God, and I'll tithe. One of the first jobs that was offered to me was this guy who offered me like 20 or 30% of the company, a porn website. One of the first jobs right out of the gate. And I said, no, I'm just joking. Like, could not do that. But that was a potentially stumbling block. If I would have taken that, going, okay, I won't have to look at the content, I won't have to do anything, I just put it on my server and everything's glorious. That's a stumbling block. It's not good. But see, because that was deliberately, if I would have went down that path, I would have known that, okay, I'm deliberately setting myself up for sin. At some point, in reality, I'm going to have to look at those images. And that would be a stumbling block for me. So, you know, of course, there was no conversation we had to have about this, because we're both eye to eye about not doing this website. But I said, no. I said, I am going to not have that millions of dollars. I am kicking that stumbling block out, and I returned the guy's call and said, this isn't the project for us. Perhaps you'd be better off looking for somebody else. Or better yet, just turn me to Jesus. So, but sometimes we set ourselves up for disaster because no one speaks into our lives. Perhaps we don't have someone to speak in our lives. Like, I didn't have anybody speak in my life when I first accepted Christ. No one was there to say, hey, dude, stop smoking weed. It's stupid. It's wrong. God doesn't want it. Hey, bro, stop drinking. Stop trying to... I dated every girl in my youth group. Okay? There was youth leaders. How come no one spoke in my life about this? No one did. I didn't know. And for that, my goal with every girl in that youth group is to see how far I can go with her. They weren't speaking into my life. I was a hormonal, horny teen who wanted to see how far I can get with every girl. And that's our society. That's your society. That's the way we grow up. That's the way we're designed. We have the opportunity, you have the opportunity to get your life spoken into about these things, to avoid these little pitfalls. Because let me tell you something, sex, drugs, alcohol, music, movies, the way we behave, the way we act, the way we treat others, the list goes on. Those are all issues that we deal with ourselves, and we need to kick those guys to the curb. So I want I want you guys to think of some stuff. Just throw us. I've got a list here. And I kind of mentioned some of them, but give me a list of certain things in life that could be a stumbling block for yourself that you have seen other people put up. Like, it could be a friend, it could be yourself, it could be a family member, it could be a friend of a family that you saw. They started here in their life. They don't have to be Christian, because even non-Christians have stumbling blocks, okay? So let's say they start their life. Can anyone say of a person, and I'll give you an example, someone started smoking weed, and all of a sudden weed became not good enough, and they moved to meth, and meth's sort of the worst. So they went to, alcohol, and then they went to cocaine, and then they went to meth, and they went to everything else. Can anyone else give me an example of that? No?
Greed.
Greed? How so?
Like, they'll get greedy about, like money or whatever, and then that they become consumed with it, and it starts like ruining everybody's lives around them and making them miserable.
And they end up alone?
And they end up alone, or they just end up making people really mad at them.
Okay. So you have a person, so what Brittany said is that we have a person who starts here. They start here and they say, I want to go to school and I want to get a job because if I get this job, I'm going to make this money. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And then from that, they get the job, and then now they have the job, but now they got a bunch of school debt, and now they have life debt because they have to still pay for life, and they got to pay for school. And so now it's about achieving the goal of obtaining as much money as they can. So by that time, they're fully consumed with the idea of money, and it's overwhelming them that they push friends around, they push their own, I guess, theology on them about money and its healthiness for them, and they end up losing it all, and they end up losing all their friends. That's typically what happened, and we see a lot of movies built around that because it's such a reality in our society. Now, money, as we know, isn't the evil element. It's the people's hearts behind that. So we definitely need to make sure that, of course, we see that if that is a stumbling block, we need to make sure we kick that to the curb. A couple other ones I have are friends. Our friends can be a stumbling block. I had I had so many friends. And I've been hooked, okay? Everyone knows I've been watching Toddlers and Tiaras, okay? Favorite show ever, okay? Second favorite show, King of Crowns. That's like Toddlers and Tiaras for adults. It is phenomenal. And this guy, flaming gay. His buddy, flaming gay. I love him. And they doll up people. I love it, okay? So, and then on the other spectrum, I watch Gangland. Okay, whole different spectrum. We're learning about gangs and anyways. Well, I grew up with black people. I grew up with Mexicans. I grew up with Spanish and Latinos and white people. A lot of white people, but a lot of everybody for that matter. But and I was thinking about it because I was thinking today. I'm like, I had a guy who I grew up with in these group homes. He was, I had one was a white supremacist, so he was a neo-Nazi, skinhead. And then I had one who was a straight edge, which is the opposite. They look identical, except for a couple elements. But, and that rubbed off on me. And remember, I lived with black people. I lived with Mexicans and every other, ethnicity in between. And I found myself, as I hung out with this friend, being very skinheadish. And I even remember I wanted like the thermal shirt with because I like Doc Martens. So I had my Doc Martens already. I had my boots and I always cuff them up, my jeans up. I was so like progressing into that lifestyle. You see, and that's the progression of our life. We start off running, and what we do is we let's say here, we start off here and it starts to peak up. We slowly build this off until finally we trip down. And that's what I was doing, and luckily that guy got moved. Luckily, God and life took him out of my life, because who knows? I would have been standing up here preaching a whole different message about white supremacy, possibly. So I thank God for that, because I could have went down the wrong. And I had another path. I had past where I hung out with Mexicans, and we had formed gangs where we did ganglish stuff. So we did gang stuff, and then I hung out with black people, and we did hip hop. That's a joke. Black people just don't do hip hop. We also did other mischievous things. So, but our friends are our influences in this matter, and relationships. The people we date. If you girls date this horny guy, what do you think you're gonna get? You're gonna get a horny guy, and you're gonna progressively go into this relationship knowing he's super like in sixth gear, and you're sitting in neutral, and he's like, yeah, come on baby, I love you, and you're like, oh, I love you too, oh my gosh, I should totally do this because he loves me, oh my gosh, and then all of a sudden, and you're down on the ground, you're going, oh God, help me, you know, where were you? And you're like, it was you, and then you're like, luckily, hopefully, you have people around you that will pick you up and say, it's okay, get back up, start running again. And that's the goal, is to run. So that is life. I've been there. I can only speak about stuff I've been there on. So another one is music. Music, we push it so much. It's a huge influence. It started off massively in the 60s. And there's a guy, Jake Hammond, who speaks about this, how the 60s and the whole Woodstock created a lulling of this generation, where this generation has since that point has been so influenced by music, it's created culture after culture.
Hamilton.
What's that?
Hamilton.
Hamilton, that's what it is, Jake Hamilton. It's created a culture. If you think about it, 60s, classic rock, psychedelic, trippy music. That was the start of it. Then you get after that, you get the 70s, hard rock, metal, 80s metal, 90s, that was just a trippy year, man. AIDS got in, neon greens, neon pinks, neon yellows, neon. I didn't even know you could neon a neon, but they did it. And guess what? This dials back. But you got the 90s, and then you had the 90s, which was the grunge. This was a high time for suicide. So you had the 70s for free love, or the late 60s, 70s for free love, and seeking out gods and soul searching. The 80s you had experienced women and sex and metal. It was all about Satan. You had the 90s, which was all about cultural, and the free love was kind of hidden in the background, but it was still there. And then that's when we got AIDS really popping up in the picture, including celebrities. You had the 90s, which was grunge, very dark and depressed. Emo really started, punk rock, which just started all the neo-Nazi movement in England. Then you had suicide rates go up. You had pregnancy rates go up. You had, of course, STDs entered the picture massively. Then you had the 2000s, where you had hip-hop breaking massively into an aggression. Music influences our culture. And as Christians, we put our earphones on, we put our iPods in their dock, we put the music in the radio station on in the car or in the house or on the TV or on our computer, and we sit there and listen to this stuff, not knowing what we're hearing is slowly embedding itself into our head. And 90% of the people, 98% of the people that I talk to say this: I listen to it because the music's awesome. That is Louis.
That is Louis.
So, 90% of the people say, I listen to it because the music is awesome. The rhythm is amazing. The bass is phenomenal. The arrangement is epic. And we go back to Satan's origination. Satan, as it talks about, and this is in the Bible, it talks about he was basically the worship leader in heaven. Okay, that was one of his main positions, okay? So, if Satan had an influence on music up in heaven, that was his... What do you think he's going to influence on earth? Music. He's going to use music as a stumbling block for Christians and non-Christians alike. How many situations do you hear? Kids with Columbine, what do they listen to? Do you guys know? Marilyn Manson. That was their thing. They listened to that, and that was their music mantra to go in there. I'm right on that, right, Brittany?
I think it was that or death metal.
It was so. And actually, Marilyn Manson ended up getting on TV and something said that his music isn't that influence. But you read the lyrics and you know they are.
Yeah.
You read the lyrics and you see there's something not right about it. It's not. God created music to worship Him, and that's it. So if we use music outside of that, it's sin. It's against God. And there's so many amazing Christian bands that we just need to engulf ourselves in Christian music, that we don't create these stumbling blocks when all of a sudden we're singing a lyric in our head that has a curse word. And the first 10, 15, 20, 30 times you're going to sing it, you're going to skip over that, you're going to use a different word, but one of these days you're going to slip. One of these days that song lyric, that curse word is going to bring its way into your regular vocabulary. Maybe the action of a depressed song. I was actually talking with one of our youth who said, I was going through a really rough time in this November period, and it was because I was listening to this one band, and this one band was all depressive, and it was like I became agnostic. I became doubtful of God's existence and God's power and authority. And I said, so do you still listen to Him now? Yeah, I do. Well, what didn't you learn the first time? The music influenced you. It stumbled you, and you're going to get up and listen to it again. Music has a huge influence on our lives. Movies. If you're so overwhelmed and infatuated with movies like I was forever, man. I when we first got married, Blockbuster used to always do 5 DVDs for $20. I was like, dude, that's a great deal. Five DVDs, that's $5 a piece. DVDs back in like 2000, we got married in 2003, barely 2003. They were still $20. So when Blockbuster did $5 a piece, I was all over that sauce. I love movies. For a profession, I made movies. So I wanted a whole wall full of movies. I actually went to a guy's house who had a wall full of movies, and I said, I want that. And we spent hundreds. I wouldn't say we didn't spend a couple thousand on movies. And you know what we did? We ended up returning them back to another place who bought them for about 50 cents each. And that went from Michigan. We did the same thing for 3 years until we got to Green Mountain, which is near Morrison. And we still did the same thing. I think the last movie I actually bought set was Nightmare on Elm Street pack. It was huge. It was like $90. And the guy gave me $20 for it. And it was only a day old because I realized I didn't need it. And we sold it because no one else would buy it. They didn't have Craigslist back then. So, anyways. So movies, our food choices will affect and become a stumbling block. Food creates a self-conscious or subconscious where we start, if we eat too much or too little, we begin to worry about our appearance in a way that's not naturally healthy. If we eat this food and we keep eating and eating, then we feel bad about ourselves. So we have to worry about our food choices, our behaviors, the way we act represent ourselves. The way if we're prideful, if it's all the attention's got to be on us, and that goes back to the first verse in Philippians in chapter 2. It says, so treat everyone better than yourselves. If our attitude is I'm better than everybody else, I'm cooler, I'm more successful than everything else, then all you're going to do is turn people away. Jobs, school, and dating are a couple other ones. But let's go ahead and skip to number 3. Number 3. Kinsey, go ahead and read that.
A stumbling block is very much a matter of misused influence.
A stumbling block is very much a matter of misused influence. That's another complex, to think about and wrap your head around. So a stumbling block is a matter of misused influence. Okay, what is an influence? You had it. I know you have it.
Somebody inputting on your life.
So somebody or something or somewhere influencing your thought process, right? So we talked about earlier about smoking and drinking. That's an influence. That billboard is influencing you. Who's behind that billboard? Some corporate guys. So you have this huge influence, okay? So it's misused influence. Your friends, your music, your movies, your dating relationships, your jobs, your school, these are all influences in your life. As a matter of fact, I'm an influence in your life. Brittany's an influence in your life. Lucy is an influence in your life. How is Lucy an influence in your life? I know so many people that said that they didn't like cats. Then they get Lucy. And I'll tell you one person, Stephen Raymer. Hated cats. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh, Lucy! Get this really high-pitched voice. He's like, Lucy! And Lucy would just stare at him. And he'd go to the Lord and she'd look at him with these really big white eyes. And he'd start looking to swat at him. And he'd just back off and then we'd sit there and eat our tacos. So, but we all have influences. And our influences, and we're going to talk about this next week, is friends. And that's a big influence. Friends is a big influence. So we're going to talk about that next week. But sometimes we are gifted by God in certain areas of our life, okay, such as acting, if it's, like what I do, making TV shows and I do photography and graphic design. If that's what it is, those influences, for yours it could be acting, it could be, acting, it could be beauticianing, it could be esthetician, it could be customer service, it could be pageants. That's a good one. I like pageants. So that's a gift from God. So if God's giving you these gifts, how are you using those gifts? So give me some examples of what Hannah's gift is. You don't know? You don't have any gifts? You have no idea what you're good at?
I guess I'm good at writing.
So you're good at writing. So that's a gift. Okay. What else?
Nothing I can think of.
So here's a good discovery starting point for you then. Discover what God's gifted you in.
Making friends.
Yeah, that's a big one. So too, and bingo's definitely not one of them.
No.
So you gotta stop spending $30 going to play bingo with.
I actually only played that
Bethany.
one time.
I know, but I saw that post. And I was about to go, thanks for the invite, but then I realized I don't want to be invited. It was way too expensive. It was like $40, and I was like one stupid number away from winning.
It was so much fun.
I know it was fun though. It was fun as a group.
Yeah.
So if we can find a cheaper one, where it's like a bunch of little kids and then us, 4 or 5 or the whole youth group.
We can host our own.
Yeah, we can do our own little bingo thing.
Have 5 sheets.
Yeah. So now you can discover beside writing, and maybe writing's your thing. Maybe God's saying, hey Hannah, I gifted you with writing. Use me in this writing. So let's go to Kinsey. Kinsey, what are you good at? You don't know? No, it's fine. It's fine if you don't know. But I think if you think about your day-to-day life within a year, you could find something that you're really good at.
I'm so good at singing.
So you're good at singing.
Oh.
Well, that's something you do know. So you don't know. You do know that you don't know. So you can't say I don't know.
I don't think I'm good at it, but people are like, you're so good at singing. And I'm like, thanks.
So either you have a bunch of liars in your life, which is true. I mean, dude, have you seen some of the people on American Idol? I'm just saying. Especially Goat Boy.
Goat Boy.
That was ridiculous. All these people are being genuine, and they're like, you really do have a good voice, and you should use it. But guess what? Madonna. I don't know who else is out there these days, but any famous singer, and I'll use Christians for that example. I know Skillet, so John Cooper. I know even a metal. Like I know so many metal bands that take vocal lessons. And Screamo.
Flyleaf.
Yeah, Flyleaf. They all do vocal lessons. Mm-hmm. So even if you have a good voice, you still have to build upon that. So God's gifted us in certain areas, and sometimes we take and we misuse that God-given influence. So God's given us a gift, and we're not using it to glorify Him, and we're only glorifying our sinful nature. And how many people do you know that boast in themselves about how great they are on a consistent basis? Sometimes it might slip out and seem that way, but it may not necessarily be that way. If they have that aura, about them, that about them, like, look at me, I can sing, right? that's a bad aura, and they're glorifying their sinful nature instead of glorifying God. And you sing worship, you know, that's where God wants you. For Hannah, dude, start writing about, I don't know, like Frank Peretti. He was one of those authors that just started writing books about dark stuff. It was really dark, demon, like amazing stuff. And it all ties back into God. It's phenomenal. And if you want to read one of his books, I got it. It's really great. But he used that gift in a positive way. So we have looked at 3 different stumbling areas for us. One is the increased temptation to sin. If we put them, if they're there, or natural life there, we will see them, and we can trip over them. We can push them out of the way. They will start off small and grow bigger. Stumbling blocks may be deliberately put there in front of us for ourselves, or by other people, the people around us, the music we listen to, the movies, our food choices, behaviors, jobs, schooling, and dating. And stumbling blocks are a matter that are influenced sometimes not on the right way. So either we don't use it right for God, or sometimes someone will take an influence we have and go, oh wow, you're really good singing. I'll give you an example. Britney Spears, she sung at church, and someone said, you got a great voice, I'm going to give you a record contract. And the clothes kept getting smaller and smaller, and then the scandals kept getting worse and worse, and the babies kept popping out, and the different dads. And God still loves her the same, but she's using her God-given talents, which God used her to get up there and sing church songs into church. And there's other people I can't think of right now. I can't think of who it was. There's a couple other singers that started off that way. Whitney Houston was that way, and she got big into coke. Yeah, crack. She got cracked for a while. But excuse me. So we get in those areas. So anyways, so this week, look at your lives and really analyze where your life is and what could be a stumbling block. Now, it could be a pebble, and I might post that video on Facebook so you guys can see what a pebble will do to you when you're going 10 miles an hour on a skateboard, a small little pebble. And that's like our life too. It could start off as a pebble, and you may step on it, but that pebble's still there, and it's going to get bigger and bigger during the trip. So definitely look at your life this week, and that's a challenge. Just look at your life this week and see what possible stumbling blocks are in front of you. And are you willing to glorify God with your God-given talents to kick those out of the way? Or are you going to notice them and leave them there? So that's a choice we all have to make. And I had to make that, and it took me years to not do it. And I didn't have any mistake in my life. So hopefully, as you're hearing this, watching this, hearing me, that you hear me saying, I am here to help you avoid these stumbling blocks that I have tripped over so much. So let's pray.